How do we turn off inflammation? Hi, everybody. This is Dr. David with another Ask Dr. David video. Hope everybody is doing well out there. So you've heard me talk a lot about inflammation and how we really need to strike a very important balance in our body because we want to make sure that our inflammatory systems are strong enough to help fight off infections. This is very much part of the immune system. Otherwise, if we can't fight, then obviously we can get overwhelmed. But at the same time, we want to make sure that our immune system in the inflammatory mode does not turn into hyperdrive, where there can be too much inflammation that can, in turn, damage our tissues, our cells. So we're always looking for this balance. Homeostasis, the term that you've heard. And so this is a really important thing that we're trying to always obtain. So today I'm going to be talking about new research that is showing that researchers have come up with a way to create these cytokines that are stable in order to help maintain our immune system. Okay. Now, you've heard me talk about cytokines before. I mean, these are some of the very important chemicals that are instantly made and instantly destroyed by our body in terms of trying to make this homeostasis happen. Okay, the most common one, if you've heard of any of these ones that increase inflammation, is called interleukin-6. But there's lots of these different interleukins, and it's just like this amazing dance that's happening with our body. We have no idea that it's happening. It's on the biochemical level, but every moment of our day, we are making these cytokines. We're destroying them. There's some that help bring the inflammation and some that take it out, and how we get that balance. Now, you've also heard me talk about cytokines in the context of COVID and what we have heard of the cytokine storm. So when we get an infection, for instance, our body, of course, immune system revs up to try to fight it off. But if it goes into a further and a longer term period, it's what's called a cytokine storm. And as we know with COVID and many other infections, it's this increase of inflammation that causes a damage to the cells. And the problem's not the infection itself. The virus itself, if our body deals with it and deals with it properly, it goes away. We're fine, right? Those are the people who have the mild types of, or sometimes even asymptomatic infections. But the people who have these very high inflammatory states, and therefore people who are prone to inflammation, people who have diabetes, people who have heart disease, people who have allergies, people who have autoimmune conditions, their cup is going to run over much more in terms of when cytokines are presented to them, and that could push them into the full storm itself. Okay, so what is this all about? Now, in functional medicine, you've also heard us talk about how there are certain nutrients that can help keep that balance in play. So things like vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids, zinc, etc. All of them very helpful. Curcumin. Okay, but of course there are also other treatments that can slow down inflammation, but almost too much. Things like licorice root. Okay, licorice boosts our cortisol level, but you don't want to have high cortisol levels for too long because that can affect our adrenals and everything else like that. So again, finding the right balance. Okay, so what we're going to now talk about is this new research that has come out. You will see a link to it down in the show notes down below. You'll see both a news article there as well as the actual research study itself if you want to really get into the nitty-gritty of it. But what they've basically found is that one of these anti-inflammatory interleukins, said that right, anti-inflammatory interleukins, that called IL-37. That's very potent in turning down the inflammation. Okay, but as we talked about before, these cytokines, these interleukins, they stick around for short periods of time. So what the challenge was is how could we potentially use this chemical that we naturally make every day as a way of keeping our immune systems more in check for the longer term? How do we do that if the product is if the protein is being broken down? And it has to do with what they did. Okay, what the researchers did. Now, sulfur itself is a very sticky chemical, sticky mineral, okay? And so sulfurs can stick together. And they found that by taking sulfur and putting them on both of these two pieces of the interleukin and creating a sulfide bond, it was able to very strongly keep that product stable and not being able to be broken down. So they're now figuring out ways how they can use this as a medication. And really, it's just probably it will be something that is synthetic, but nonetheless, it's something synthetic, like almost like a bioidentical hormone in a way, in that it's actually being using something that our body naturally makes in order to keep it down. And so that would have just tremendous, tremendous benefit to people who have autoimmune conditions like multiple sclerosis, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. Even now we know about the inflammatory autoimmune components that are involved in things like autism and other neurodevelopmental conditions, but also hyperinflammatory conditions that are probably have some autoimmune component as well, such as Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, and diabetes, as the diabetes type 1 destroys the pancreas because of the inflammation that happens there as well. Okay, so here we go. We can figure out a way to do this. And so it's going to be a few years before they come out with this, but I just thought it was kind of neat that they figured out a way to take out something that we normally make ourselves, make it into a stable compound that will hopefully be able to made for in medicines. Because let's face it, if this does work, probably there's going to be a lot less side effects associated compared to a lot of the medications that are used nowadays as these biologicals to turn off the inflammation as well. So obviously we don't have it available to us quite yet, but something to keep an eye on, because obviously not only that, but could this be something that would be used if a person's having an asthma attack, for instance, if a person's heading into the cytokine storm, whether it's from COVID, from this current COVID, or from another influenza, or God forbid the next pandemic, which of course I shouldn't say God forbid because it's probably going to happen, but still it's nice to know that there are things that are out there. So of course, leave any comments, any interesting thoughts that you may have in the comment section below, and have a great day.